have compassion for people in constant pain, because there were many times that I literally did want to die. I'm like, if I would just die, it would be so much better. I'd be out of pain. And I thought it all out. I'm like, they would get
Mhm.
the life insurance proceeds, they would be set, and I would be out of pain.
Right.
And I thought that more than 100 times. I always dreamed of, oh man, when my boys get older, we'll be able to train together and do kettlebells, and I can teach them all the tricks of the trade that I've learned and all this stuff. And then to get to that phase in life and to be, relatively speaking, incapacitated is devastating as a man. And then literally losing the physical ability to do what I do to make a living. It was a serious challenge. And I can say that I never got depressed about it. I do know that God is in control and he's aware of what we're going through. And he gives us these struggles and challenges to overcome so that he can have the honor and the glory for it. But that doesn't mean that over 100 times I wanted to die. I left it in God's hand and I'm here.
We just jumped in the deep end. I saw Carrie's videos. I watched a bunch of them and I was like, I mean, we have nothing to lose.
Sure.
Let's try it, you know? So I called my friend who's been carnivore for like a year now. And I said,
Hi, everybody. Today we're with TD and Faith, and I thank you guys for joining me today and sharing your carnivore story. So for those of us that don't know TD and Faith, can you guys introduce yourselves and let everybody know a little bit about where you're from and what you do and that sort of thing?
So I'm TD. This is my wife, Faith, and we live in Northeast Texas. And we're kind of like, we're a family of 8. And we decided to live like a more slower type of intentional lifestyle. And we've always been like food conscious and health conscious and we've always been like real, concerned about what we eat, which is why we raise our own cows and we have lots of fruit trees and we've always had gardens and all these things. Well, about 200 days ago, we started on this crazy carnivore thing. We joined the carnivore cult and, we have experienced such incredible changes in our sleep patterns. Just the general wellness has been incredible, very impactful, and we're very excited. And it was an absolute, for me, it was a necessity. I'll let my wife talk and then we can kind of get in maybe to why I wanted to do this.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many different roads that led to carnivore. I feel like, so like my husband said, we have always been, he grew up, kind of healthy, crunchy food, his mom, was like, I don't know, shredded wheat or something. It was
Grape
just
nuts.
like, grape nuts. It was like, whatever they could buy at the health food store. I didn't. I grew up on standard American diet. So just everything that was pre-made in a can, just total junk, garbage food. The only thing we didn't do in our house was soda. Praise the Lord for that. But everything else was just kind of a free-for-all. It was just a lot of junk food. But then my grandparents, when they would have like family meals or things like that, they would cook from scratch and they would cook whole meals, whole food type meals, not canned and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had that kind of mixture growing up. And then when we got married, I didn't know anything about cooking. If it didn't come from a box or a can, I just had no idea how to boil water. And so, so I just did everything from a box or a can or whatever. And so little by little, he taught me some things about healthier ways to eat. So by the time we had our first baby, I was 25 and we were both working full time. So that kind of adds a dynamic to it too, with time and all of that. And we had really started to learn about whole foods. So we kind of really switched over to like, if it was in a box or if it was frozen things, pre-made things, we wanted to get rid of all of that and just go with whole foods. So that was 18 years ago. So that kind of started us on that journey. But I think when we look back, I know in my life, I ate a lot of plants. I didn't eat hardly any meat all growing up. I never hardly ever ate meat unless if I had to, like if my dad was like, okay, like you have to eat this piece of meat that's on your plate. Like, they were hunters, so they did some deer meat and stuff too. But I hated it. I didn't like meat. So that led right into our married life. I didn't really like meat. I didn't really like touching meat, raw chicken, anything like that. So I just didn't do a lot of meat. And then we kind of got onto this plant based thing when my son, who's 18 now, was born, and we were already doing the whole foods, but the plant based, I don't even know that they called it plant based back then, but it was just kind of coming around. And so that sounded good to me because I didn't really like meat anyway. And so I just did a lot of plant based, and we would only eat meat if we were going out to dinner, which was very rare because
Right.
we had 3 babies in a row. So we did not go out to dinner or out anywhere very often at all, maybe a few times a year at the most. My dad might watch them for like a date night, and he'd get a hamburger and I would get like a black bean veggie burger because I thought I was like doing something good,
Right.
Uh, and so, with the exception of going out to dinner, he would get a steak and I would get my veggie burger. Or if we went somewhere really nice, maybe like once or twice a year, I might get a piece of salmon. But other than that, we really weren't doing meat. And then that led us to Texas 10 years ago. And I thought it was really funny because when we got here in our backyard was real little, but it backed up to the neighbors, and there was all these Angus cows back there. And it's cow country
Yeah,
everywhere. It's just
everywhere.
beef
Yeah.
country, And I was thinking, oh, this is really funny. The Lord has a sense of humor because here we just eat vegetables and plant based, and we are like in beef country, and we don't really eat that. And so little by little, we started to break down. I guess culturally, we kind of felt some pressure, being in that we started getting like little rolls of like ground turkey, because, oh, God forbid you bring home ground beef, in my mind, So
Right.
I started with ground turkey and just little things like that. And then when we moved here, about 9 months into being here, our neighbors here had longhorn cows, and he said he'll sell it to us, whole cows at a really discounted price. He just had compassion on us, I think, because we had so many kids, and he just wanted us to have some good meat. And so our freezer always had beef in it. But still, we would only eat it like, I don't know, maybe once a week. Some of my kids didn't eat meat at all. They just ate vegetables. TD would love to eat meat every
Yeah.
single night.
And I became incredibly disenchanted because I kept having all these back issues, which come to find out it was stemming from my shoulder condition that I had. I didn't know that. I thought I had
Yeah.
massive issues in these different things. And I became so disenchanted because here we are, we're crunchy. We try to eat majorly organic.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm tired. I can't sleep. I got all this pain and inflammation. I had incredible brain fog. I didn't realize that's what it was. And I was so disenchanted. I'm like, man, they talk about getting old. I guess this is getting old,
Right.
and getting old is just terrible.
Mhm.
And yeah, 200 days ago, because of Carrie at Homestead House.
Yeah.
So my wife stumbled upon a Carrie video
It's funny. Yeah.
because I had always, I said, look, I need meat. Like when we eat, I need meat. That's the deal. So dinner needs meat in it. And
Yeah.
I had been doing that, but I still felt, I'm doing all this other stuff that's supposedly good for you. And I
Right.
felt terrible. I mean, I
Yeah.
felt terrible.
Mhm.
And
Cabinets full of supplements
all kinds
and
of
green
supplements, all
powders
kinds of,
and
yeah.
smoothie and whole foods. I mean, everything was just it was just, a lot. I had a whole cabinet full of fresh fruit. I would get like 5 different types of fruit every week at the grocery store, and I would just keep it filled in the kitchen because I thought, they should have unlimited fruit. The kids should just be
Mhm.
able to eat unlimited fruit, vegetables. We almost killed ourselves trying to grow a garden the last, I don't know, 9 years. Not this year, but canning vegetables, doing all of that stuff. So I mean, we were in it to win it, and we had freezers full of meat, but we didn't really like I was rationing it out like just a few times a week. And like I said, some of us just didn't eat it at all, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
then,
kind of that was the going way of thinking, anyways, right? I mean, for most
right,
people, it was like just an occasional thing to eat meat, especially red meat.
yeah.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. And then I found out I had this arthritic shoulder condition, and it's
Right.
what was creating all this back and neck issues. And so they scoped my shoulder, and then their 4 orthopedic surgeons said, "Well, that you literally have the worst shoulder I've ever seen, and you
Mhm.
need a shoulder replacement." So I kept trying to get additional help from them, and they're like, "Well, we want to cut your bum shoulder out and replace it with metal and vinyl,
Mhm.
and hope that it lasts you 10 years until we have to do it again."
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh boy,
Ooh,
well, that's not going to work, you know?
Mhm.
yeah.
So, my chiro recommended me, and I had done every conceivable type of chiropractic, like advanced orthogonal, Gonstead, indirect force. I mean, I had done the gamut of
Since we've been
chiropractic.
married, I mean, he's always gone to the
Yeah.
chiropractor like 2 or 3 times a week,
And,
constant.
and I even did Erasti. I mean, I was trying to do whatever I could do. And so I met with a stem cell specialist in Dallas. We did stem cell, which was incredible.
Mhm.
It took away my pain and everything. But
Hmm.
he's like, this is going to kind of freeze it where it's at. And hopefully this treatment will last you 3 to 5 years, and we'll do it again. And just as God would have it, about 200 days, because I'm like, they've removed all this scar tissue, they've opened up all this space in the cavity and
Mhm.
everything, because what had happened, scar tissue had developed so densely it was pressing on a nerve, and I was
Yeah.
Mm.
just in radiating pain like
Yeah.
24/7.
And the surgeon that went in and did his shoulder surgery, it was just kind of a last ditch effort. He said, "I'll go in and do this before we just, throw up our hands and do a full shoulder replacement. But you're probably going to need a shoulder replacement, and you're probably going to need 2 shoulder replacements because the other shoulder isn't as progressed as that one is, but it's on its way. Like you just have arthritis in your body, So
Mhm.
when he went in there, he was in there for 4 hours, and the surgeon came out and he was like, "He's got the worst shoulder I have ever seen." He said, "He needs a shoulder replacement." And I said, "When?" And he said, "Today. Like he needs a shoulder replacement." He's like, "I did the
Wow.
best I could. I cleaned it up." But he's like, I couldn't even, he said, "It's so tight that I couldn't even get my scope in there to just see what was going on." He's like, "It's just a disaster." He was like, "Your
Wow.
husband's just been in incredible pain. So, yeah, then we went to the stem cell guy.
Yeah, and what had happened is, I'm like, I know that this scar tissue and whatnot's going to come back. I mean, because
Mhm.
that's what
Mhm.
scar tissue does. And so in the back of my mind, I'm always, thinking that. And right about the time where Faith decided, hey, why don't we all just do this carnivore thing?
Yeah.
I was starting to get like these faint feelings like in that arm. And I'm just like, oh man, this is like flashbacks. I know what this is, and this is really bad. And so that's when we made the switch. And that was about 200 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the improved sleep,
Mhm.
which just does like
Everything.
miracles on my
Yeah.
shoulder, just being able to sleep.
I'll bet. So
And
let's rewind. Let's rewind a second. So, why, Faith? Why did you suggest the carnivore diet? Were you looking for answers for his shoulder, or was it something else?
I mean, his quality of life for the past 7 years has been horrible, just absolutely horrible. He was just unable to do anything really. I mean, he could go to work just barely, and there were times where he had to hire an assistant to go with him to, put the ladder out
Do the
and
stuff.
just
Yeah.
help him do things because he couldn't physically do the job that he was supposed to do. So he was paying somebody else to do all the physical work. And there were several times in the past 7 years that, we've come to a point where my 18-year-old now is like, okay, if daddy needs me to go to work with him, I might have to do all the physical stuff and daddy just does all the paperwork because we're a family and we need income, so we were really at our wits end. And like I said, just the quality of life. And then with that, for a man, for anybody, but for a man, a young guy, we're still young,
That's right. You're
and
like, I'm young.
it just weighs on you mentally when
Oh,
you're
man.
just in pain constantly. You're not sleeping. You have no quality of life. You can't do anything, even just getting dressed, pulling up your pants, zippering your pants. He loves to graft fruit trees and just the fine motor skills he didn't even have to graft the fruit trees anymore. And just me as his wife watching him deteriorate that quickly, it was just really scary. So I was always looking at
And I
other.
love to weight train and
Yeah, he had none of
6
that.
days a
I
week.
mean, he
And
couldn't do anything. He
yeah,
could
that I could.
barely stretch. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just a no quality of life at all. And last year we went and got the stem cells done. So he had stem cells taken out of his hip and they spin them right there and then they inject them in with an ultrasound into, whatever
The
area
joint.
you
Yeah.
need them in. And he said allow like 6 weeks for, to see what it's going to do. It's not going to improve anything, but it will pause all of the degeneration at best.
Mhm.
And it'll just buy you some time and some years, and then we might have to do it again. And it just kind of pauses everything. That's how it's supposed to work. Well, we waited those weeks and he had no improvements at all. And we went on a cruise last year with our family and he pretty much laid in the stateroom most of the time. Just not sleeping, in pain. He just really didn't, I mean, other than eating meals and things like that,
Mhm.
he really just didn't, he wasn't able to do anything. Um, and that contrasted to this year. We just got back from the same exact cruise on the same boat and all of that. And he was boogie boarding
Yeah.
and he was playing pickleball with the kids. And I mean, just going,
Night and day
I mean, just
difference. Yeah.
night and day difference, different person.
That is
So
awesome. So I thought you were
it's,
going to say he was diving off of the boat.
If they would let
That's
me.
right.
yeah.
That's awesome. So you just happened to come across one of Carrie's videos, and
Yeah. So I guess we have been following him just because of the homesteading things. And,
right.
we follow a lot of homesteaders. And I thought, wow, this is really fascinating. I mean, it was pretty early on in his carnivore journey that I've started
Mhm.
following. And I don't know if it was his 30-day update or whatever. It was early. And I'm like, this is incredible. I mean, this man's really getting his life back, and he had a lot of pain and different things that he was struggling with. And I was like, well, we have meat in our freezers and we're
And we
always,
raise cows.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, what if this could really work? And we had friends in real life who are about 10 years older than us. They went carnivore about a year ago. And so I thought they were crazy. But I didn't want to discourage them because, they were coming off the American Standard Diet. And I thought, well, anything that they can do to get off of that,
Yes.
soda and all that stuff will be an improvement. So he reversed his type 2 diabetes and they both lost like a lot of weight and just new energy. Lots of things improve, right? Everything improves. And so I'm watching Carrie, and then I'm like looking at my pantry and looking at these freezers and I'm like thinking, I mean, we've done everything
Right.
else.
Exactly.
We've done everything else. We've done plant-based.
Exactly.
We did fruitarian for
Mhm.
like a year or two. I don't even
Yeah.
remember, maybe 2 years, some variation of it. We've done whole foods. We've done gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free for 5 or 6 years now. We've done juicing like crazy people. We've got like grocery carts full of juice and vegetables or vegetables
I
to
think
juice.
that's what's kind of interesting about our story is we can honestly say that we've done all these different modalities relatively faithfully and
Right.
strictly, and it was so discouraging because we had been very faithful to do all these things that you're supposed to do, and we've read all the books, and the 80-10-10 and the China study and all these different
Oh yeah.
things. And we and it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to try this for 30 days or anything. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to stick to this. We're going to gut it out. It works, and it's great, and longevity and blah, blah, blah. And then to do all that and just be like, dude, I feel like crap. Like,
Right.
I mean, and I was literally, I was like, man, this is just getting old. Can't sleep. I feel terrible. I'm in pain. I have all this inflammation, and getting old is terrible. And I mean, now I had extreme circumstance. I was in severe pain and had mechanical damage and issues. And I can honestly say, and I've always had a very sound mindset. So I've never been troubled with depression. And I have incredible compassion for people that struggle with that and have dealt with that. And I've always been like super positive. And there was many and that's the thing. I have compassion for people in constant pain because there were many times that I literally did want to die. I'm like, it would just be, if I would just die, you
Wow.
know, um, it would be so much better. I'd be out of pain. My wife and children, we have a couple $1 million, we're debt free. We have a couple $1 million, and I thought it all out. I'm like, they would get the life insurance proceeds. They would be set, and I would be out of pain.
Right.
And I thought that more than 100 times.
He never said it.
No, of course I
Wow.
never said. And the other things that I never said is, you're a man, you're active, you're physical. I have all these boys, right? And I always dreamed of, and because I would train 6 days a week, and I was very committed to it. And one of the main reasons was I was hypoglycemic, and it was how I regulated my blood sugar, because you can't do that with diet. You can't do that with diet. So, and and I was very much I very much enjoyed it and was addicted to it as part of my regimen. And I always dreamed of, oh man, when my boys get older, we'll be able to train together and do kettlebells, and I can teach them all the tricks of the trade that I've learned and all this stuff. And then to get to that phase in life and to be, relatively speaking, incapacitated is kind of like devastating as a man. And then literally losing the physical ability to do what I do to make a living was incredibly defeating. It was a very it was a serious challenge, and I can say that I never got depressed about it. I do know that God is in control, and he's aware of what we're going through, and he gives us these struggles and challenges to overcome so that he can have the honor and the glory for it. But that doesn't mean that over 100 times I wanted to die.
Right.
I left it in God's hand, and I'm here. So
Right. Right. Yeah. So,
That's
so that
awesome.
was
So,
what we jumped in. We just jumped in the deep end. I saw Carrie's videos. I watched a bunch of them, and I was like, I mean, we have nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose here.
Sure.
Let's try it. So I called my friend who's been carnivore for like a year now. And I said, so what do I make for like meals and stuff? And she said, just meat. It's just meat. And I was like, okay, I could do this. So that was it. And it was just baby steps, and we just kind of fumbled through and figured it out. And we still had baskets of fruit on the counter that we had to finish through that week. So I was like, well, they can just finish eating that up, and then when that's gone, I'm just not buying anymore. And then I found Dr. Barry and beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I was like, well, I mean, it doesn't get any easier
We have
than that,
chickens, we
you
have
know?
cows. Check this out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and sausage. And a couple weeks into it, we had planned to go down and visit friends in South Texas. So that kind of gave me a new challenge because I was like, okay, so we're going to go rent this Airbnb house, and all the things that I normally do to provide food for our family, like if we go away, everything is, this is a whole twist, right? So, but it was so easy. We just went to the grocery store, we got a bunch of eggs and a bunch of sausage and bacon and hamburger, and we all ate and enjoyed it.
It was
And
awesome.
we invited friends over the one afternoon, and I said, do you just mind? It was like lunchtime. I said, we'll just have eggs and bacon and sausage and all that. And they loved it. They were like, it was totally great. And it was a normal meal. So everybody was happy with it. So we did that, and yeah, we kind of just jumped in.
Yeah. And now, so we were probably about 30 days in, and, I was feeling great, and I was joking around. I said, I feel so great. I bet you I could do a push-up, right? Because I'd been trying to do these like sissy push-ups against the table and all this stuff, like nothing. I mean, I had nothing. And I'm like, I feel so great. I could do a push-up. And so I'm like, they're like, yeah, right. And
We're
like,
all there in the kitchen.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do one right now. And she's like, don't hurt yourself. And I got down super strict. I crunched out like 20 push-ups, and I was just like,
Oh my gosh.
whoa, that's insane. I'm like, I just did that. Like I couldn't do one.
Yeah, I couldn't look. I was like, he's gonna hurt himself. We're gonna end up in surgery tomorrow.
And so fast forward like another 30 days, right? And I'm at work, and I've been telling the guys, I'm like, hey, look, I switched up because they knew what kind of physical condition it was. I'm kind of senior position at my work, and I'm a major cog in the machine. And I even had the discussion at work, like, I don't know if I can physically do this anymore. And they're probably trying to think like, oh, well, what do we do? How do we replace TD? Different things. And it's hilarious. I come into work, and the owner of the company is talking to my manager, and he was like, oh, I'm going to just start eating meat. You know, this guy, Jordan Peterson, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, I've been doing that for like 90 days. Right. And I'm talking to them, and they knew what was up and everything I'd been through. And I was like, yeah. And I jumped down on the floor, and while I was talking to him, I just started cranking out reps, and I did like 40 push-ups, and they're both standing there like, whoa, that's incredible. Like, that's ridiculous. And so right now at my work, I got I got 3 plus the owner. So I got 4 guys, and I know 3 of them are very strict. And we're all just, holding each other accountable and giving each other tips and tricks. But it's really neat to watch other people that were, that needed to make a change, and watch them make a change and watch the transformation, and to be able to support each other.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool.
That's awesome. And what's really crazy is, you guys had the key literally right outside your door the whole time. Isn't that insane? I mean, when I think back on it, it's like the answer is right there the whole time, and you just needed that little bit of information to say shop from this section of the grocery and not this one, or in your case, shop from your backyard.
Right.
Yeah. And not only that, what's more fascinating to me is like, it's so incredibly inexpensive, and everybody gets so scared. You're like,
Right.
oh, meat's expensive, this is going to be hard. And like, when you see all the costs that you eliminate from your diet, it is incredibly inexpensive. Not to mention the health costs that you're not going to generate, that when you apply that towards your food, it makes it even that much more inexpensive. And then the amount of waste that we no longer generate buying all this packaged canned stuff, we've reduced our waste production by 75%. So we went from a 50-gallon trash can in
Yeah.
our kitchen closet to a very small tote.
Yeah.
And we fill one tote. I compost all of our coffee grounds and all of our eggshells and any paper products. And then I bet you
It's just plastic wrappers from meats.
yeah, I
That's
bet you
all we
it's
have
I
really
bet
much
you
trash.
it could be I bet you we're producing maybe 20% of the waste.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
dramatic and it's
Wow.
so green. You know what I mean? It's kind of incredible
Yeah.
that this one point solution will literally resolve an enormous amount of issues.
Mhm.
And it's so simple. It's
Yeah.
so non-complicated. It's in a very real way. It's inexpensive. And relatively speaking, everybody has access to it.
Sure.
True. So you're it's environmentally friendly then.
Yep.
Right.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So
And I
you
think we
guys,
have
when you were
access.
eating vegetables and fruits, you guys didn't have any of that go to waste, did you?
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Yes. There's so
Exactly.
much. And yeah, okay, I compost it, but
Yeah.
that who wants
Right.
to buy it and throw it out? You
Yeah.
know?
Especially with little, like, who had this half-eaten apple?
Oh yeah.
That used to drive him
That would
crazy,
drive me nuts. And
Uh,
that
yeah.
Yeah,
very
what's
frequent.
that smell in the fridge? Oh man, there's radishes from I don't know how long ago in the back turned to liquid.
Constantly,
Exactly. Yeah.
and just even the whole foods like oats and rice and just pasta or different things like that that we would cook in big batches. You'd use it, for meals, as the week went on, but then it gets to a point that you're just like, oh, I'll throw it out to the chickens or, throw it out to
Feed
the
it to the
pigs or
dog. Yeah.
whatever.
Feed it to
But
the pigs. Yeah.
there was a lot of food waste.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
just a lot, and now there's just
Minimal waste, even from a
none.
monetary standpoint
Sure.
with the meat. It's so easy to
Sure.
reheat and to mix it up and
Yeah.
to come up with some
Yeah.
different concoction, and it just doesn't go to waste.
Yeah. And our
And
dogs are carnivore. We just give them ground beef and eggs, and they're
There you
fine.
go.
They're doing good. We just got a new little puppy, and I got her the little cans, dog food from the grocery store to start her off, and just kept putting a little bit of that on her plate with the ground beef and the eggs. And now she just eats the beef and the eggs, and she's doing good. And
Oh,
it's
I love that.
crazy. It's so
so simple.
simple.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, okay, so all I have to do is get beef in the freezer. And we have chickens for eggs, but we have neighbors that have eggs too, and there's a grocery store up the road that has eggs. So it's like, that's all I have to do. Are you kidding me? Like, I've been doing all of this work for all these years. So the simplicity is great.
And I can imagine with you, because you said you weren't, necessarily a cook, in the kitchen. So it was probably sort of a pain to have to do all that food prep.
It was. It was. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So yeah,
Wow.
we're just all been tickled to death with it. And the boys, it took some time. There was a couple of our kids that didn't really eat meat. So, and I wasn't a big meat eater. So I just made myself, I heard Dr. Barry was like, you're an adult. Like, you just need to eat it no matter what. I think he was talking about fat or, stuff like that. Like, just put
Mhm.
on your big girl pants or big boy pants and do it no matter, just make yourself, and I was like, okay, that's what I have to do. So for the kids, in the beginning, we allow like ketchup, like organic, no fructose ketchup, like some sauces to make it more fun. We let them do carnivore waffles for a while. It was just scrambled eggs in a waffle maker. And then we let them put a little honey on it, just things to keep the troops happy, like, because I knew it was going to be, a little bit of a
Transition. Yeah, sure.
transition. And I didn't want any bad attitudes from it. So I wanted it all to be happy and good. So whatever we have to do, sometimes we circle back around and we start buying lots of bacon again, or now we got off this cruise and they got introduced to these little breakfast sausages. And so we have like lots of these breakfast sausages in the refrigerator. But I'm like, whatever we have to do to keep people happy.
Yeah.
There was sour cream on the cruise. So everybody started loving that. I mean, sour cream, it's like less than $4 for this giant, like, half-gallon container down here, you know? And it's like,
Right.
that's cheap. That's so cheap.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
butter and sour cream as toppings on our food now, it's like, it's not expensive, you know, compared to what we were doing, you
Right.
know? I mean, do you know how many bags of cinnamon toast you have to buy? Like, to I mean, my kids can eat half a loaf of cinnamon toast and they're still hungry in 20
Mhm.
minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Right, for sure. So you
Mm.
have transitioned your entire family to carnivore?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
We
Wow,
all
that's
eat the same.
impressive.
Yeah, we all eat the same. My little kids still eat some berries, so they have blueberries, frozen blueberries, and they have frozen like some mixed berries in the freezer. It's not even every single day, but if they want them, we just say in the evening, like as a dessert or something, they can have that. And
Mhm.
for like special like birthdays or things like that, we get ice cream for them.
And I
So
converted our garden. I converted our garden because we installed a mitt-lighter garden with like a drip system. So I converted
Mhm.
our garden into a huge blueberry patch,
yeah,
and then I
Okay.
collect fig trees. So I got all of my collector varieties in there. So my our garden will be basically kind of like a curated fruit array because I'm real into like propagating, and we have about 400
right.
fruit trees, so I'm still super into that. When it's in season, well, I know I will eat it.
Right.
I really enjoy that,
But,
but
like, when the pears were in season, like, the end of this summer, the trees were loaded with pears, and, like, the little kids might have one or something like that,
and it
or
was great for the animals, you know, for the pigs and the
we kept
chickens. It was
yeah,
just
we kept
incredible.
picking
I
them
mean,
and
it was
giving them to the pigs, so,
yeah.
I mean, that's fine, or give them to neighbors, I guess will be, you
Mhm,
know, good, but the pressure is off so you can just enjoy growing trees and doing that kinda stuff and
Mhm.
propagating, and you don't have all the pressure of, like, "How am I ever gonna provide," you know, as a homesteader, you know, like, "How am I ever gonna get there?" Like,
mm,
you know, it's just it was just a
it
vicious
was wild.
all-consuming circle of, like, I mean, I would have to grow a field of green beans, you know, like, I would have to grow a field of tomatoes to have enough tomato sauce for everybody, you know? It was just enough was never enough, and I'm like, I just don't understand, but when we're doing meat, I'm like, "Okay." I mean, we have cows.
Yeah, and then with the cows, so because I've been trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to resiliently feed these cows, and if we expand our herd and whatnot. So I started doing a lot of research, and I really got into mulberry trees, and mulberry trees are they call it tree hay. So I've been collecting different varieties of
Okay.
mulberries to get the perfect forage, and then I'm going to propagate them, grow them out. I'm going to have to grow them up to a decent size before I plant them over in our cow pasture because the cows will mow them down. So that's what I'm working on for a more resilient, kind of like a silo pasture
Mhm.
with our cows with mulberry trees. And I'm not aware of anybody that's done that yet. But so that's one experiment that we're running right now.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That'll be interesting.
yeah. But
Yeah, that
it
sounds very
just
cool.
community, you know, I mean, there's people around that have cows. I think pretty much anywhere anybody is, unless you live in a major city area in America, you're probably not too far from somebody who's raising cows or raising, you know, chickens for eggs. And you can, you know, source some of your things, maybe not all your things, but maybe some of your things local. And it just, it's great because it takes some of the pressure off of you too. You don't have to provide all of your stuff,
Yeah,
you
and it
know?
reinforces and supports your community. You know,
Right.
it's kind of like for example, we our chickens stopped laying,
Yeah.
and I mean we eat a
Oh,
lot of eggs. Like when I tell you we eat a lot of eggs, I'm saying that we could eat 90 eggs in a weekend.
Yes.
oh my
Easily.
goodness.
Very, very
Yeah, very
easily.
easily,
Yeah.
like without trying.
Yeah.
And so there was a sign like a mile up the road, eggs. And so because I'm like, yeah, we could go to the store and buy eggs, but hey, if I buy them from my neighbor,
They're cheaper
for
usually.
cheaper,
Yeah.
and they're going to
Mhm.
be raised better, they're going to have more rooms, they're going to have higher quality food, they're going to, you know, more of a free range, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so I started buying from her. I cleaned her out. Like I kept her because our chicken, I mean, we have a lot of layers and they just totally stopped.
Right.
So I started buying from her. I cleaned her out. Right? And then I'm like, hey, I need more eggs, you know? And then she's like, I have a friend. So now I have a network of 3 neighbors. And and now of course our chickens have started laying again.
Yes.
So
Well, we added a light bulb in there. So I
Oh, no.
forgot. It just, the day and nighttime hours, it just started getting dark earlier. And then I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's right. They need a light bulb in there.
but now
So
we
now,
have a network of
yes.
3 neighbors. So if we ever need eggs, so
Yeah.
it's really neat. So we're keeping our money in our community and we're getting a higher quality product at a lower price point. So
Right.
it's pretty cool. I mean, it is really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And for
So
oh,
your shoulder, TD, it's effectively healed now. I mean, you're doing all these push-ups, so I'm assuming that it's
Yeah.
better for you.
So yeah, so that range is good. I still have I can stretch fully up, but there's definitely some mechanical stuff I can't do, and all the doctors told me that. They're like, look, certain things you're just not going to be able to do. But
Mhm.
I can't do pull-ups yet. I'm working on it. Because I am missing 30 to 40% of my labrum is gone.
right.
So when I do any of those type of anterior rotations, like it's bone on bone and it's not cool. Like that doesn't feel good. So yeah. But effectively, like, and I made a big mistake because after I got everything done and after I got the stem cells, I should have taken a picture of my shoulder and but
Yeah.
it was ultra disgusting. It was flesh wrapped over skeleton
Yeah. It was.
and it
Oh,
looked
Right.
like, and
Your shoulder, it looked like this. It looked like a square,
yeah,
like a total square. You could see the bones.
and it was traumatic to look at,
Yeah.
and but now, I mean, it's relatively speaking all the muscle tones back.
Yeah. It's round again.
It's miraculous looking. I mean, it's and it's not perfect, but it's
Right.
a
right.
trillion% better than it was.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can
that's
sleep at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
awesome.
round. It's
Yep.
not like skeleton
It's not,
boy,
yeah, gross looking.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I have similar experience, not with as intense pain as you had, with and having to do surgeries and things like that. But once I went carnivore, that gave me shoulder problems, and I theorized that the inflammation that was in my shoulder was keeping the nerves and things in place, and then when the
Yeah.
inflammation went down, it was allowed to move around and stuff, and it was causing me pain, and I couldn't lift my arm higher than this.
Hmm.
So I bought
Okay.
this book, and it's a orthopedic surgeon. He only does effectively just shoulders, and he wrote this book to keep people off of his operating table. And literally the trick that he teaches people in this exercise is to hang. So I thought, well,
Yes.
I can hang, right? So
Uh-huh.
now I can. That's all I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just
That's
Great.
I
awesome.
hung for maybe 10 seconds
Yep.
at a time for 3 or 4
Wow.
times a day, and then gradually increase that and increase that and increase
Yep.
that, along with some specific exercises
Exercise.
that he had. Super simple, and yeah, it's so
I
effectively
know
the bone. What's that? You know what book I'm talking about?
the exact book you're talking about. Yep. And
Okay.
that book and those exercises did extend me tremendously because that's what was really frustrating for me because I would be in severe pain and locked up, and I was able to exercise through it and get relief and get back to normalcy in small pockets. That's what made it so frustrating because I'm like, man, I've been able to break this cycle several times, but what was happening was that the scar tissue was building up, and the scar tissue ultimately did me in just because of the missing labrum. But yeah, hanging and then doing those circular weighted exercises are, I mean,
Hmm.
I recommend, Pete Agoscu wrote a book, the Agoscu exercises, but then that doc wrote that shoulder and hanging with those lightweight exercises. If anybody has shoulder problems, it is awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I mean, I would have severe acute pain if I did something like open a bag and it just
Yep.
suddenly snapped. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I was on the floor in pain. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now I have none of those issues, and it's just from hanging, which is really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I still hang every day. I got a pull-up bar here in the studio,
Yeah.
and I hang multiple times a day. And I'm a big proponent of inversion. I do an inversion table. I have a teeter inversion, and that
Okay,
makes a lot of difference too. Yeah.
Yeah. But
awesome.
now you're not on it, like
Yeah. Now I don't have
90%
to
of the
live on it.
day.
Yeah. I used to have to like live on that thing. I used to
Right.
have to get up in the middle of the night when I wasn't sleeping and hang upside down, and I would hang upside down for like an hour and a half.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was, oh yeah, I was so sleep deprived. I would get on the inversion table upside down and fall asleep upside down,
Oh
like
my
Count
son.
Dracula. I'm like,
That's It's bad. It was
it was bad.
when he came home, he was on the inversion table or doing some type of exercise or something to try to get some type of relief. And that was with all the chiropractic and all that.
Psychologically, my life revolved around,
Your
okay,
shoulder.
how do I get out of pain?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to try to go to sleep. Okay, I need to sleep because if I don't sleep, I'm going to have more pain.
Mhm.
Oh, I can't sleep. So now what do? I'm in pain, and for 7 years, my life revolved around, okay, well, now I got to do pull-ups and
Mhm.
now I got to do this and now I got to do that just because I need to try to stay out of pain so I can go to work and do all the things I got to do. And yeah, it was very it was a prison.
It was all consuming.
Yeah, it was a
Yes.
prison.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, I'm glad that you're feeling better, man. That's definitely got to be
I
great for your family too.
1,000% better.
Yeah. Yeah. We have
Yeah.
a new person in the house. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just night and day
Yeah.
difference.
It's
you
very
know?
dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
TD,
I
you were helped, but what about you, Faith? Have you seen any
yeah,
improvements?
absolutely. Yeah. So just pretty early on, of course, you lose a lot of weight. Or I did, just cleaning up my diet and taking out all of these, extra side dishes. So yeah, my 30 pounds of weight that I was holding on to forever and ever. And then I would, do these different things over the years, to try to like restrict my calories and fast and do these different things and cut out desserts and everything. And I would barely squeak by to lose, 25 pounds of it. And then as soon as I, ate a little bit or smelled some food of something, it seemed like, it would just come right back. And I'm like, oh, this is horrible, but I've been able to lose my 30 pounds, keep it off. I mean, I'm pretty much the same weight that I was when we got married.
Yeah.
And so that I feel good. Of course, you lose a little bit of weight, you feel good. I have good energy. And then that just snowballs into everything, right? I mean, I want to go outside. I enjoy being outside. And now, like like tonight, I was like, I gotta run. I gotta do my sprints before I come sit down here, because I have so much energy. Even though I've been up since first thing this morning, homeschooled 3 kids, went to the dentist's office, did dentist appointments with 5 kids, helped the boys with, the dinner stuff and then come and sit in here. But I'm just like, I got to go sprint. Like I just got to run around for a little bit, So, and I'm
That's
45
awesome.
years old, so I'm not a spring chicken. And but it feels good, just the fresh air and everything. So I think that just plays into everything. I mean, just your mental state, especially as a mom. I see, going from like survival mode mom, just being 30 pounds overweight, more sluggish, not enjoying going outside or like, where do I have to walk to? What do you have to show me? And now I'm just running around with them, outside. So it's just a lot of, just really great things that I've noticed lifestyle wise.
And it's a self-regulating, because when you come to the realization that, wow, just this minor shift in diet and it's going to correct these issues, and then you're like, what else you know what? I'm going to start doing this grounding stuff,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that I'm sleeping better and getting up earlier, and maybe I'll do some cold plunging, and I'll start introducing some different cycles of fasting and different things. And it
Yeah.
really becomes such a synergy because
Mhm.
one, you have the inclination to do it, you have the energy to do it, you have the mindset to do it.
Mhm.
Um, the mental clarity comes back, and then you have this acuity, and it starts to become like this process where you're like, well, if I made that small change and had this dramatic result, like what other small changes can I make that are don't even cost anything,
Sure.
and just to have all of these incredible results.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes like a success cycle, in
Mhm.
my opinion.
Yeah. I think it just becomes part of almost like self care where you just realize that, okay, I'm feeling good. Well, let me, go sit out on the porch and, I'm taking the dogs out to go potty or whatever, and the sun's coming up. Let me just enjoy 5 minutes out here and looking at the sun coming up. Or, okay, it's evening time, it's beautiful. The sun's starting to go down. I'll go do my sprints, or I'll just go walk around. Or one evening we were out there with my little ones, and I had missed the sunset going down, but the stars were out and it was beautiful, and we were out running around in the backyard. I'm like, I mean, it's beautiful out. I mean, running's fun at nighttime too, as long as you have a lit up backyard, and gonna trip on something,
Right.
like this is cool too. I don't know. When you don't, my husband says it's probably from somebody else, but most people don't do good because they don't feel good. And I
That was
know
Jim Rohn. Yeah.
as a mom, that was totally true. And trying to like force yourself to have the motivation to like get on the treadmill and do something when you just don't feel good. You don't have the energy to do it, I think it's because we're not feeding our bodies what they need, and it's meat and eggs. I mean, it's very simple. So if you eat enough meat and eggs, you just start to feel good, and your brain turns
Mhm.
on, and life is easier and better, and you don't desire to go back.
That's
And
awesome.
the
So,
the,
good.
the
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
challenge uh, the challenge is when you get this mental clarity and this motivation, you are not a malleable person that's just trying to subsist and exist. And that is a threat to certain infrastructures, especially infrastructures that want to destroy the beef industry. So I think
Mhm.
that's part of it as well. And we don't have to go
No.
deep dive into
Yeah.
that, but that's why, and that's why I love Sean Baker and the stuff that he's doing,
Yeah.
and the way he puts his stuff out there, and is mocking a lot of it. It's really great. But there's so much truth to that. And the great thing is once you have that energy and acuity, you can invest some time on that side as well. Pushing back, and that's why we're excited about raising our own cows and making them available to our local community, because we don't want to just have the solution and share our story, but we want to be able to be abundant and share that as well,
Mhm.
which is um really is very fulfilling.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's Sean Baker. He is a little funny when it comes to some of those posts,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, he's
So you
Yeah.
guys have both seen improvements on your diet, and you have all of your children eating a carnivore diet as well. Have you guys noticed any improvements with them, or have they shared with you guys that anything that they've noticed that's different with them?
Yeah, lots of improvements from them too. I mean, they were healthy kids as far as we knew anyway, but our oldest son, he was able to drop quite a bit of weight. And he didn't appear to be like an overweight
Mhm.
kid anyway, but it really just took him down. I forget how many inches on his waist size.
Yeah,
with the
he
skin.
actually didn't lose any weight on the scale, but
Okay.
he lost 2 or 3 inches on his waist.
Right. His waist just shrunk.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and at that time, he was working out a lot too. So he's kind of had to take a break because he had shoulder surgery too.
Mhm.
Second shoulder surgery runs in the family.
Mhm. Left shoulder, same shoulder.
Yeah. So, but he's going to be starting back in January. He'll be all healed up from that, and then he'll be able to start working out again. But just all different things.
Their skin dramatically
Yeah.
totally cleared up.
For
Yeah.
teenagers, you know, I saw a big difference in their skin. They didn't have to be on skin medication anymore. It's not perfect,
Sure.
but definitely a
Yeah, and their
difference.
diet's not perfect either.
They treat themselves to
Yeah,
ice.
they kinda
We,
Do they,
we
do they
if they
indulge in cheese or anything like that? Any kind of
yeah,
dairy?
they have cheese on their burgers, and they do have ice cream, probably more than we know.
probably more than they should.
Probably more than they should. So that could have to do with their
Mhm.
skin too.
Mhm.
But you know, and one of our sons too, just really was more of an emotional kid. Just really had more of like an emotional. He's a younger teenager, like just more emotional ups and
Roller
downs and
coaster.
roller coaster kind of, you know. So there was a lot of me kind of coaching him through that the last couple years of like, look, it's just your hormones, you know, it's
Mhm.
nothing unnormal or anything. It's just sometimes you're going to get really frustrated and it's just your hormones. You're not, you know, and so, or upset or whatever the emotion is, you know. And since going carnivore, I mean, he is just
Flattened out.
really super flattened out. I mean, just me and our relationship has changed a lot. He's just more level, and he was definitely a bit, you know, not as much of a meat eater.
Mhm.
Definitely not my meat eater kid. Like if we had sweet potatoes and whatever, I don't know, we didn't have steaks that much back then.
Because he would have very severe reactions to gluten.
Yeah,
He was very food sensitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. Yeah. So,
Yeah, he would become like asthmatic and all different kinds of things like that. Yeah.
yeah, so just
Goodness.
that's been a big difference. And even just my little kids, their body composition,
Change.
I don't know about their weight necessarily has changed, but their body composition has changed, that they just got really streamlined, you know, and they're just like, you know, I mean, they've always been active, healthy kids, but watching the shape of their bodies, and they're little. I mean, they're 8, 7, and 5 right now, but just seeing that change, I'm like, wow. And the muscle.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like these little boys, and they become like these muscle sharks.
Yeah.
Like they just, and they're not, you know, they're just doing stuff,
Yeah,
man.
they're
They're
just
just doing
running
their thing.
around,
They're not like doing regimented calisthenics or
No,
anything.
uh-uh.
And
Right.
just to watch their bodies change. And
Yeah.
all it is like, oh wow, you are what you eat. They've always said
Right.
that. And
Mhm.
then, you know, you eat a muscle and you turn into a little muscle.
Sure.
It's very fascinating, just as from a anecdotal observation from a lay person like myself. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. And I
That's
just
awesome.
didn't realize carbohydrates were just converting into sugar. So like, even though I thought I was doing good with, you know, whole oats or whatever, steel cut oats and some berries and nuts and chia seeds and whatever, you know, for breakfast. And then, you know, lunch would be like, I don't know, but just like, you know, all of the different grains and carbs and potatoes and all of that stuff, it just all converts to sugar, you know. And I've seen a big difference in their teeth and their oral health.
Big time.
We just got back from the dentist today, you know, and they're still following those same cavities that the dentist has been like
From
keeping
before. Yeah,
eyeballs on from before, but
Right.
they had really like a lot of cavities before,
Yeah.
like an insane amount.
And
of
once again,
cavities.
this is this indirect cost, right? That we don't associate with that. Once you switch over, this is an expense you're going to eliminate.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating. I mean, and I'm sure there's bean counter nerdy spreadsheet people that could really get like dive deep down into this and
Right.
break it out. Unfortunately, I'm like a big picture helicopter 30,000 feet guy. But I would
Right.
love for somebody to like nerd out into the data
Right.
and just dispel that this is like expensive. Cause I bet you it would be a dramatic reduction in overall expense. Like I bet you
Oh
it would
yeah.
be hard to calculate how dramatic the savings
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, for sure. I can't even imagine how much a filling is now. I mean, when I was a kid, I had quite a few fillings myself, and I remember seeing the bills from that,
Mhm.
40 years ago. And
Sure.
it was like $150 back then, I don't know what it would be now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty hefty bills. So it was just that's been good to see the improvement on that end. And, um I'm trying to think of what else I was going to say. Just for our size family, our big staples, how we make it work is just ground beef, lots of ground beef, lots of eggs. Eggs are cheap. We did add back in sour cream since we went on vacation. People are excited
I'm
about
not a
sour
sour cream
cream.
guy.
Uh, Bacon is more of like a luxury because it's more expensive. Even cheaper bacon is just more expensive when you times it by a bunch of people eating bacon.
We
So
have to make a lot of
yeah, so we go in spurts with bacon, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Another thing that I find fascinating, because I've had all this inflammation. So I've always had some type of bursitis or tennis elbow or whatever. And what I find fascinating now, and even though before it was the whole purpose of inflammation and pain is to say, hey, something's wrong, right? And it's supposed to
Mhm.
say, hey, something's wrong. It tells your brain. And then you, as a thinking human being, are supposed to
Mhm.
say, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
I need to modify, I need to make a change so that the pain goes away. And
Mhm.
what's neat now is I have I have arthritis in the same arm of my bad shoulder. And it's neat now because I'm like, oh man, my elbows bother me. And I'm like, what did I eat something or did I?
Right.
But today elbow feels great. No pain. I've been eating clean. I didn't accidentally eat anything because that's one thing I noticed on the cruise. I was getting omelets in the morning,
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
second day I noticed I'm like, oh look, this is oily. I'm like, man, they're cooking this in something, you know what I mean? And I'm sure it's some type of seed oil. It's something that they're
Right.
certainly not. And so I cut out the omelet, you know, and it's just kind of neat now when you start to feel you're like, your body's
Yeah.
telling you, hey man, something's up.
Yeah.
And then you make the change and you're like, oh, cool. I'm good. Like,
Mhm.
uh, and so the way God created you with the warning signs and everything, now you can actually get the warning sign. Okay. Okay. Make the
Right.
change. Oh, cool. Pain went away. I'm
Yeah.
back. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
My body's doing what it's supposed to do. Wow. It's almost like somebody created this thing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
for
for
me, I
sure.
never like serious arthritis or anything like that. But I just had what we say, right, is the normal like 40-year-old little aches and pains and twinges, and you just feel things more, your hands might cramp up or getting out of bed. You're just like, oh, you're walking a little funny until you get your hips going or, things like that. And that all went away. Like
Yeah.
all of that is gone. So it's just incredible.
I love that. That's awesome. So, would you guys mind sharing with the viewers if somebody is potentially looking to make a change to their diet? They've heard about the carnivore diet, but they're not sure about it. What kind of advice would you give to that person?
Okay.
My advice would be all you have to do is try it for 30 days.
Mhm.
Within 2 weeks, I felt dramatically better.
Mhm.
Everyone that I have worked with and have spoke with and the different testimonials that I've heard
Mhm.
almost exclusively, I would say within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, if you are going to try it, do it for real. Like,
Mhm.
do it for 30 days and absolutely do it for real. You're a grown up, you're an adult, you can suck it up, you can be strict with it and do it for 30 days. That doesn't mean, I am very practical, like, and that's why we aren't purists in this sense. Like, I do believe that it makes sense if you are going to do this long term. In my opinion, you do need to be. There are purist people that can be super strict, but I think you need to have some latitude so that mentally you can maintain it and not yo-yo. Um,
Mhm.
but do it for real. Do it for 30 days, and I can almost guarantee you within 2 weeks, it's going to be so dramatic that you're going to be like, "Wow, thank you. This was awesome."
Right. Absolutely. And I think my advice would be that you don't have to be perfect with it either. You can be as strict as you want to be, but you don't have to be perfect. In the beginning, like I said, that first week, we just let the kids finish up the fruit. I enjoyed every single grapefruit. Like the sugar just from grapefruit, I would eat 5 or 6 grapefruits in a day. Like I was so addicted to sugar that just the sweetness of a grapefruit, I would just eat all of them. Like I just loved them. But I had my carnivore friend, and she said, so it's beef, butter, bacon, eggs, but she said I added an extra B for like survival. Blueberries. She was like, get yourself a bag of frozen blueberries. And in those first, month or 2 months or however long it takes, if you just really, really need something in the evening or something, just get yourself a little scoop of frozen blueberries. And if it's just enough to get you through, and those blueberries were like a lifesaver for me in the beginning. And it wasn't that long, it was like, maybe by the second month, we just started to phase them out. And me and you stopped. I mean, I don't crave blueberries anymore or anything like that. My kids still eat the frozen, fruit, but we just don't crave it anymore. It's just I don't need the sweet anymore.
Yeah, and my second recommendation is, okay, so start practicing this now. So everybody you talk to is going to say, in a very awkward way, like they're like afraid to ask you or something. Which somebody just asked me this probably yesterday. So do you think you're going to eat like this the rest of your life? Okay, first off, nobody thinks about that, like food or even saving money or anything or whatever. But I say, I think I'm going to eat like this as long as I find it beneficial to my health.
Right.
Yeah. Great answer. Great answer.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And along the lines of not being perfect, I mean, it's different. I think if people are hypersensitive, if you find out that you have a bad reaction to food, if it has peppers in it or something like that. But like, for us, I gave a lot of grace for the kids. Like I said, we had ketchup. Now we're down to sour cream and butter, but it's taken us 6 months to get to the toppings being sour cream and butter. I mean, I allowed for a clean barbecue sauce.
And that drove me nuts because I'm fanatical, and I'm like, if you're going to do it, you better do it
and
for
I'm
real.
Like, no, we're going to make this happy and enjoyable. Like my one little boy who's 8, he wanted teriyaki sauce at one point. And I was like, I mean, it's got like 30 grams of sugar in a tablespoon of teriyaki sauce. But you know what? If it helps him to eat his meat, because he was not a meat kid at all, I don't want him to, start mentally feeling like, oh, I hate meat. And I felt like that as a kid. I want him to have a good attitude about it. He doesn't need a teriyaki sauce. He didn't even finish all the bottles of teriyaki sauce that I bought them. But, just little things like that just helped get him through. And I know it can help adults too. Sometimes you have to just be gracious with yourself, and you might give up the teriyaki sauce eventually, but if you're doing something and it helps keep you on track, that's better to just be on track than to say, well, I'm a failure, I can't do it, because I only know that I can eat beef and salt and water, and I can't mentally do that right now. Eventually you might, or you might never get to that point, and that's okay too. It's just, yeah. being gracious.
That was something else that happened that was kind of fascinating. When we started, because we raise cows and pigs, and we were eating probably 50% pork and 50% beef. And once we started, about 30 to 60 days in, I'm like, I don't want the pork anymore.
Right.
I'm like, I want red meat.
Yeah.
Like I feel best. I feel optimal at that. I still love the bacon, and I'll eat the bacon, and I'll take the bacon. I'm not going to hate on bacon, but the rest of the pork, I can totally leave. Like, I don't need that, and I don't want that.
But
that
we
was
do ham
interesting.
sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
We do ham sometimes to mix it up.
But I'll say this too. Like, man, when I used to eat ham, I would gun it. I mean, pounds. But now it's just like, I'll eat some, but
we'll usually have it with beef, like have some beef and have the ham on the side, and turkeys and hams right now. I mean, if it's still the holiday season when people are watching this or whatever, stock up on your turkeys and hams because they're like $1 something a pound. And it's just nice to have some variety sometimes,
So what's your guys' plans for Christmas with, navigating that?
Well, it's funny because we're having a Christmas dinner at church this Sunday. So I was in the loop with the different ladies, and we have meals, fellowship meals, almost every Sunday at church anyway. So that's been interesting, because there's this huge spread of food and then a huge table of desserts, every single Sunday, which maybe that's why the cruise wasn't as big of a deal for us because we're used to navigating that anyway. So usually we just bring meat that we're okay with eating and share it with everybody else. And then at least we know there's going to be an option there for us, even if nobody else brings anything that we could eat. There's still going to be something there for us. We're gracious, if somebody brought chicken or different things and there might be certain seasonings on it, I might give that to my little kids or whatever. They're not going to have a reaction to it. It's, it's fine. We can have some wiggle room in that. So yeah, we're bringing a ham. We brought a big turkey a couple weeks ago to church, and we bring ice cream. I know it's not perfect. But Dr. Kiltz does ice cream. So we buy whole ingredient ice cream. And I don't indulge in ice cream. 99% of the time he does not have ice cream.
Yeah.
But my teenagers enjoy having ice cream as a dessert once in a while.
And their skin pays the price.
And my little ones.
Same here. I love Kilt's ice cream, but I can't have it but maybe once or twice a year because my skin, once I found out that dairy was what was causing my adult acne, I'm like, I can't have cheese and all that butter and all that anymore. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. So do you supplement with butter, or you can't have the butter?
Nope. What I normally would cook with butter, I cook with tallow.
Oh, okay. Because here's what I did. So, because we were dairy free and everything, so we went carnivore, and then I'm like, I need to up the fat, and we get really good tallow. I really like our tallow, but I was like, I would really like to introduce butter back in,
That's a couple months in.
And so we added butter back in, and I was doing my carnivore coffee with butter, tallow, and raw eggs, and one morning I drank it, and I immediately I was like I felt the post nasal drip like immediately, and I'm like, that's weird because everything's been great. And I'm like, it's the same coffee. It's the same. I'm like, oh, it's the butter. So the butter was kicking in the inflammation response. So I'm like, so I cut the butter back out, and immediately everything went back good. And I'm like, oh, I guess I can't have butter. And then what I did is I was like, well, let me try Kerrygold. Let me do the Kerrygold. And so I reintroduced the Kerrygold, and right now I'm doing good on that. I haven't had any type of inflammatory response. So, but yeah, I had the same exact thing with butter. But when I switched up to Kerrygold, that's been working for me for now. It might not always stay that way.
Yeah, I would say the Kerrygold, so in terms of my skin, it didn't really cause that much of an issue. I mean, I still had some skin issues. And there wasn't any sort of a stall with weight loss or anything like that eating the Kerrygold, because I did that for the first 3, 4, 5 months. and then just gradually got rid of it to see if things would improve, and they actually did. But if
Mhm.
I ate other brands of butter, definitely skin problems started coming back, and like you said, the inflammation in your sinus cavity and things like that would be more prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I could
And
definitely see that.
that's what's so neat about this modality of eating, because you can continue to fine tune it and fine tune it, and what works for you and what works for you doesn't work for everybody, and what works for everybody else doesn't work for you. That's what else is neat about it, and the community, is because you can hear all these different feedbacks and what's working and not working for other
Yeah.
people, and you're like, hey, I think I'm gonna try that. You don't have to like visit a medical deity and have some MD tell you, you have a deficiency in Ozempic. So, if you took an Ozempic supplement, you wouldn't be fat anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you need Lipitor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, just in our supplements, we haven't,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we are saving a
Wow.
fortune just
Yeah,
in
we're saving
supplements.
several $100s a month
Yeah.
in
I mean,
supplements.
because we
Yeah.
have vitamin D. I've always been low on vitamin D my whole life. So I do supplement vitamin D and iodine. And I still have jars of multivitamins in the cabinet, but I don't really think we need them.
I'm a big iodine guy. Dr. Brownstein did extensive research, and basically he's tied almost exclusively like every major illness to iodine deficiency. And yeah, I think people should really look at iodine. And what's really neat is, I take very high doses of iodine, and I don't recommend anything to anybody. But my wife was incredibly sensitive to iodine, and because she had thyroid issues in the past and all these different things. But now that she's carnivore and everything, she's reintroduced the Lugals and no issues with that.
Yeah. And
So it's pretty neat.
I'm up at like the highest dose, like according to Dr. Bright, or, I know Dr. Barry and Nisha, they talk about iodine a lot. So I'm up at where I need to be, for my dosage of iodine. So yeah,
Nice.
I mean,
That's
it's
awesome.
been great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still figuring it out.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys for sharing your story with me and my subscribers. I really feel like you guys are going to inspire many. And what's funny is it all started with Carrie, and Carrie
Yeah.
now has transformed your whole entire family and everybody you work with, TD. And he kind of has that effect on the world. So yeah, that's really cool. So where can everybody find you?
So we have a YouTube channel. We're called the Texas Boys. And some people think that's weird because the Texas Boys are getting older now. But our boys started a channel like 7 or 8 years ago. And they were the little, and they were the Texas Boys. So we're the Texas Boys. So you can check us out over on YouTube at the Texas Boys. We're on Rumble. We're on Twitter. And you can always go to TheTexasBoys.com and check out our website. And we have homestead products there. And me and my oldest son, Matt, we have a podcast called the Fearless Podcast. So we are also on all of your podcatchers. We had a great interview with Sean Baker over there at the Fearless Podcast. We have lots of really cool interviews scheduled coming up. So if you're into like carnivore or homesteading or intentional living, check out the Fearless Podcast.
Yes.
I think you'll enjoy it.
And they have a great air fryer video coming out too.
Yes.
It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you're interested
I can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
You see this giant air fryer.
Yeah,
it's giant.
Texas.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time, and we will meet again.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Yeah.
All right.